Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this for just a moment. We get involved in these debates, whether it's in your classrooms, whether it's out on the streets, whether it's at political engagements. But you know what? The answers have already been outlined for us. The Declaration of Independence tells us very clearly what the purpose of government is. To secure our rights, governments are instituted among men. See, what we need are more individuals that are willing to run for office and that we are willing to elect in office that recognize that government is not a charity. We need more people like Davy Crockett, who was a congressman in the early 1800s, who on the House floor said, "I will not stand behind and I will not put my hand to these pieces of legislation because there is no authority granted in the Constitution for me to do so." You have individuals in Washington, D.C., all the way down to local dog catcher, that don't understand the principles of freedom. They abuse their authority, they disregard the Constitution, and they violated their oath. They have violated their oath. The oath means nothing to them. It's not as easy as voting individuals out of office because, as I've illustrated, the Republicans believe some of the same things. You have a handful of Republicans that get it in Washington, D.C. You have a Republican Party that kind of gets it, but in other areas has no clue. You look at the Republican Party platform, it's 62 pages long. They got it. But you have individuals in office that don't understand their own platform, most of whom probably have not even read it, and it should not surprise us if they haven't read the platform. Well, they probably haven't read the Constitution either. And so it's this vicious cycle where people are getting up and they're looking good, their hair's combed just right, they've got a great smile, and they talk persuasively. And we say, that's my man. We have to move beyond that. If we want to chase these people out of office, we have to have an awakening going on in this country. And the awakening is happening. We know that the awakening is happening. Look at what started 5 years ago. We weren't having these types of meetings 5 years ago. People weren't coming together, whether it's the Tea Party, conservative groups, and federations and coalitions. They weren't happening. They're happening today. There's an awakening that's happening. People are saying enough is enough. But in order to ensure that this movement has longevity, we've got to bring more people to the table. Well, go ask one of your professors here on campus what the philosophy of government is. Talk to your colleagues here on campus and ask them what the philosophy of government is. Most people can't tell you why we even established ourselves, why the idea of America even exists. The reason why we exist and the principles upon which we were founded is this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among those being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the philosophy of government. And yet we have 535 individuals in Washington, D.C., Congress. We've had presidents now and in the past that don't recognize what the philosophy of government is. How did they get there? No, that's not how they got there. They didn't get there because of the Constitution. They got there because we have a people, a population that largely is ignorant of the Constitution. So is it any wonder that you have individuals in Washington, D.C., on the U.S. Supreme Court, all the way on down? Is it any wonder that you have 535 individuals in Congress? Is it any wonder that you have individuals in the executive branch? And I don't care if we're talking about Democrat or Republican. Is it any wonder that these individuals simply ignore the Constitution? It's because you have a people that are largely ignorant of the document itself. Brian Berkland began coming to my seminars about 2 years ago. He's from Arizona, and as I started teaching him this sort of thing, he was considered quite the rabble-rouser, because he was going into these meet and greets, he was going into these political forums and asking the questions that I'm going to outline for you today. This man had the opportunity to go to a closed-door meeting with an individual running for one of the most powerful positions, take that back, for the most powerful position in the world. It was a presidential candidate. I will not tell you his name. I will simply illustrate the principle here. He was invited to a closed-door meeting. And these people were doing what sheep do. They're asking questions just for the sake of asking the questions. They weren't asking the questions that really mattered, that allowed us to really assess where he stands on the principles of the Constitution and the principles of freedom. And so at one point, Brian stands up after all of these questions are being asked, says, "Sir, you know what? I appreciate all the questions that are being asked, but let me ask what I feel is the most important question that it hasn't been asked and has been overlooked." And he says this: "Can you tell me where in the Constitution you derive your authority to act as president?" This man didn't know. This man was attempting to garner your vote, telling you, "I want to be president of the United States," but did not know where in the Constitution he derives his authority. This is pathetic. And we've allowed this to happen. See, we've forgotten that there is actually the answer right before us, if we would just look at it. This, what you're learning here today, can change this country. But you first need people with courage that will go back and work with other people in the community to start drilling these people, forcing them to answer the question on your terms, not on their terms, forcing them to come and answer the questions not knowing what they're going to be asked. A better tomorrow is coming. It's within our grasp, and it's within our power. We can make those things happen. A better tomorrow is possible. I believe America's best days are yet to come. I make no bones about it. I know it's going to be hard, but if people like this continue to come together, we can have a real impact, and we can restore America back to the great nation that it was always intended to be.